The PlayStation 2, quite possibly the best console that Sony ever created. A console that, to this day, is regarded as the best console to ever release. From DVD playback to backwards compatibility of PlayStation 1 games to introducing some of the most critically acclaimed games released for the system, some of which people want to see more of to this day, myself included. The PlayStation 2 was not only a console that introduced new franchises, but also would be a home console that continued the legacy of PlayStation classics. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, even Final Fantasy. These franchises would transition to this new console while retaining their fundamentals that were established on the previous console while introducing new mechanics, new visuals, or new playstyle altogether. That's not to say that every franchise made the transition to the PlayStation 2 gracefully, because chances are that they may have fallen short. I wouldn't go so far to say that the transition was terrible, but not as acclaimed as the older games were on the PlayStation 1. For Capcom, the PlayStation 2 era was the introduction for new IPs that are now considered fan favorites. Devil May Cry, Beautiful Joe, and even Okami are known to be Capcom's finest works for the PlayStation 2. But what of the Mega Man series? The last classic game was Mega Man and Base for the Super Nintendo that was later ported to the Game Boy Advance in 2002. Mega Man Legends would be left on a cliffhanger after the conclusion of Mega Man Legends 2, and the X series would suffer through the infamy that was Mega Man X6. Needless to say that the Mega Man series would have had an ace in the hole alongside other Capcom franchises, but considering that other divisions had their hands full with much bigger projects, the Mega Man series would have little to no chance for a new entry in the PlayStation 2. All the classic and X series would have our collections, but all of that changed in 2003 when Capcom Studio Production 3 would create the next Mega Man X game, one that caused everyone and anyone who experienced it to ask the one question that quite possibly a lot of people have asked or yet to ask. Even for today's standards, the question must be asked once again. What the hell, Capcom? There's a lot to unpack here, so I'll just jump straight to what exactly happened with Mega Man X7. The X series was met with some disappointment due to no proper 3D game for the original Mega Man series, or X for that matter. All eyes were on Mega Man Legends right up until the cancellation of Mega Man Legends 3 in 2011. Now, technically there is a 3D Mega Man game, but it's a racing game. Close enough, I guess. Now, under the helm of Capcom Studio Production 3, producer and programmer Tatsuya Kitabayashi would transition the X series from 2D to 3D by focusing on what was described as getting 3D right. Now, I'm not entirely sure what getting 3D right means, but transitioning to 3D is no easy task. So while Mario made the transition gracefully, leaving Crash Bandicoot enter 3D with hardly any trouble, the Mega Man X series will find itself in a position that it could have been beneficial, but ended in disaster. For a deeper and better narrative, Axel was created to be the younger renegade of the group, according to Kitabayashi. He's young, he's running away, he's like the younger character of the group, and that's why I wanted to put him there. Producer Tatsuya Minami stated that Mega Man X7 would also feature multiplayer, but this feature was not included in the final release. Though Keiji Inafune had little involvement with Mega Man X7, he did contribute to the creation of Axel by offering advice to the illustrations so that his design could match the design of X and Zero. Axel was designed to be youthful, while the main antagonist, Red, was inspired by the Grim Reaper. Keiji also commented on the 3D transition. My personal opinion was that 3D is simply a graphical style, and just because a game is going 3D like X7 was, it doesn't mean we have to make it a 3D game. I've gotten used to franchises making the transition to 3D 3D because deep down it feels inevitable for 2D games to make a 3D transition. But if there's anything that Bubsy taught me, is that transitioning to 3D has no guarantee of being good. 3D transitions changes gameplay, design, camera angles. Everything has to correlate in order to ensure a smooth, assuring 3D transition. Otherwise, you'll be stuck trying to figure out what can work in 3D rather than how the whole series could work in 3D. And when that happens, the end result is an underwhelming experience that makes you wonder what could have been or what could have happened. And that's how I ultimately feel about Mega Man X7. What could have been and what could have happened. PlayStation 1 introduced proper and well-designed 3D spaces and gameplay, either with new mascots or existing franchises. Now with more powerful hardware, it's only natural that developers take advantage of the new toy from the toy box with some well-crafted conceptions of their own. But sadly, a well-crafted conception Mega Man X7 was not, mostly due to the experiences of Studio Production 3. When I think of why X7 was a major flop, I immediately look at this Capcom studio in particular and look at their previous endeavors, most of which contain Resident Evil titles. Despite creating some X titles, I think Mega Man X, or Mega Man in general, isn't Studio Production 3's strong suit, and that becomes apparent when you see exactly how the game feels and looks. Almost as if someone was trying to make Mega Man X Resident Evil with fixed camera angles and slow transitions between stages. Even Devil May Cry had fixed camera angles, but it also has more impressive and faster paced gameplay. So it boggles my mind how games from Capcom could play with such refined gameplay, yet some are reduced to the most sluggish, slow paced, amateurish, and most embarrassing display I have ever seen. Mega Man X7 is a perfect example of what happens when you don't build a proper foundation for the 3D transition and you completely botch your transition attempt because of it, all while failing to retain what made the X series engaging to begin with. There are so many rules that Mega Man X7 just breaks, simply because it lacked refinement, polish, and overall just wasn't built right, despite the focus being getting 3D right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh my god, so before I walk through the gates of hell because I already opened said gates with my experiences of Mega Man X6, Mega Man X7's plot seems to not carry over any of the plot lines from X5 or X6, and that's quite a shame because after all the chaos that those games ensured, X7 should at least address the virus outbreaks or the Erasure crash or how humans could have taken those instances as a precaution. Instead, X7 begins with Axel and Red performing a job to hunt down Mavericks for reasons that weren't specified. Axel shoots both of them, one he deceived by copying the buddy's DNA. So this introduction acts as a demonstration to showcase Axel's ability. At no point does Red have any semblance to the scene. The game then summarizes Mavericks, Maverick Hunters, and X stepping down to achieve peace without violent methods. Due to this, the Maverick Hunters were crippled, and a group of bounty hunters known as Red Alert began to take center stage. One key character of this group, Axel, decided to leave Red Alert to become a Maverick Hunter. As he escapes from Red Alert HQ, Zero arrives at the highway that we all know and love and finds Axel running away. What he's running away from?
What's going on?
With Axel's help, Zero destroys the Mega Scorpio, and Axel is then taken into custody and brought to Maverick Hunter HQ, where Axel meets X face to face. X is most displeased with Axel's actions due to him being a Red Alert member, but Cygnus questions why Axel left. Axel discloses that Red Alert used to hunt Mavericks, but now resorted to cold-hearted murder. Everyone decided to fight Red Alert, but X was against the idea. Suddenly, the leader of Red Alert, named Red, nice name, demands Axel to return to Red Alert. But knowing that Axel won't return willingly, Red organizes a duel to determine who the real Maverick Hunters are. Again, X is against the idea, but Axel is determined to clear his name by fighting Red Alert. Even if Axel did return to Red Alert, he'd just be right back to where he started, killing Red Boys for God knows what reason. As Zero and Axel partake in the duel, X still laments Red Boys fighting each other. You'd think that he'd be used to fighting Mavericks even though he resorted to diplomacy countless times, but now he just takes the backseat and sulks in his own self-pity. Would have been nice to see X build Elysium in this title. If he wanted to assure peace between humans and Red Boys, then building a utopian society for that purpose would have been beneficial. Instead, X just whines about violence in the world, knowing that Red Boys can, and have, resulted to evil tactics. Because of X's lament, Zero and Axel now have to partake in the duel without him. Red Alert has begun the duel and dispatched their loyal combatants. Tornado Tonian, a silly dancer who broadcasted annoying messages on the radio tower. Soldier Stone Kong, a bounty hunter for Red Alert who fights like an honorable warrior. Splash Warfly, another bounty hunter who stole a large submarine battleship and used it to imprison Mavericks. Ride Borsky, another bounty hunter that prowled highways at night. He occupied a driving circuit alongside his motorcycle group and littered the road with bombs. Vanishing Gungaroo, a bounty hunter who was programmed to be a child. His kangaroo ride armor provided comfort, and he was generally favored among his comrades. He occupied an underground tunnel system that was the base for weapon storage. Flame Hyonar took control of an industrial complex in a gazelle mechanolloid. He suffered a head illness and believed that destroying Zero and Axel would ease the pain. Wind Crowwing, a bounty hunter and rival of Axel. He took to the skies with an airship armada. Antsnipe Anteater, Hunter, Red Alert's cyberspace expert. He's the one that intercepted the details of the two Reploids from the beginning of the game so that Axel and Red, mainly Axel, can steal the virus program Sigma 2. Virus program Sigma 2? Okay, what is this crap? You mean to tell me that Axel and Red embarked on a mission to steal a Sigma virus program? But wait, Sigma 2? What is this, the second coming of the Sigma virus? Seriously, the more information like this goes unnoticed, the more irrelevant the introduction becomes. In the middle of the duel, Axel discloses information about his copy abilities. A Red Alert changed for the worse, and on Red's side of the story, he's been speaking with this so-called professor. Axel has no recollection of how he obtained the ability to copy DNA of Reploids his size, but Red abused Axel's power to seize DNA data and use it to become stronger. Over time, Red Alert's thievery escalated, prompting Axel to leave Red Alert. And as for the DNA data, it was used to power out the Reploids in Red Alert. But according to Axel,
just nobody in Red Alert had the ability to use DNA data to power up Reploids.
So there's a missing link.
this is where the story shifts to Red and the Professor having discussions about using DNA data to become stronger. Although Red didn't see the need to become invincible, the Professor thought otherwise as he needed Axel to retrieve the data of X and Zero. Red refused to partake in the Professor's plan, so the Professor enhanced Red's Reploids with his DNA. Now, the game never provided clarity about this data, but my hypothesis is the interaction between Red and the Professor took place after Axel killed those two Reploids and stole the virus program Sigma 2. The program was used to power up Reploids, and Red demanded Axel's return, kicking off the duel. During the middle of the duel, Zero and Axel rescue Reploids along the way. This prompted X to join the fight. In order to finish things, he has to do it.
To finish things, I've got to do it. To finish this once and for all.
What does he have to do exactly? The game doesn't specify. God, this dialogue is so bad. Okay, so after all of Red's Reploids have been defeated, Zero, Axel, and now X take the fight to Red's Crimson Palace. They take the Palace Road and eventually infiltrate the palace, where they meet Red and do battle. Once Red has been defeated, Red rigged the palace to self-destruct in case of an emergency. What was the emergency? Beats me, all that happened was the Hunters fighting Red and that was it. So why the self-destruction, especially when the Hunters had to escape? So after Red takes in his final moments, the Hunters press on to locate the Professor, who unsurprisingly is Sigma. He's still going after X and Zero, big surprise. With their combined efforts, the Hunters defeat Sigma once again, but Sigma still has some fight in him. Sigma punches the daylight out of Axel, and Red appears and attacks X and Zero. Sigma then attempts to absorb Red, but Red was actually Axel. Never mind how and when Axel copied Red's data, but he managed to shoot Sigma out of the palace as Sigma falls to his death like a doozy villain. And depending on who defeats Sigma, one of three endings plays out. X's ending is that he refuses to recruit Axel because Axel used violent methods to defeat Red Alert. So Axel had to prove to X that he has what it takes to become a hunter. Axel's ending is him performing his Maverick Hunter duties, and X doesn't recruit him simply because he thinks it's impossible to train someone like him. Zero's ending, my personal favorite, is him having a dream about X becoming a megalomaniac over destroying Mavericks. Zero wonders if his dream was simply a dream, but in actuality, it was foreshadowing a conflict against Copy X in the Zero series. This also references X's ending from X4, him fearing he'll become a Maverick one day. So there are many problems with this game's story that it warrants a rewrite. Before I do that, I need to dissect this plot. First, the intro cutscene. There is no proper context for anything that happens. The only purpose this cutscene serves is to showcase Axel's copy ability. At no point does the story disclose what Axel and Red are stealing or how they found these two Reploids. Second, X's character. X's character has been done dirty in this game. This one compassionate Maverick Hunter that had to carry out his duty was reduced to a whiny pacifist that decided to explore peaceful solutions to end the Maverick attacks. And when Axel expresses remorse for his past transgressions, X still doubts Axel's determination and is against fighting Red Alert, even knowing that diplomacy won't work. I understand that he doesn't want to fight, but all the more reason for him to fight anyway. X had to partake in battles in order to ensure the safety and protection of others. When conflicts get really out of hand, that's when X has to bring his A game. X has to fight for justice, to fight for hope. So why, oh why, does he have to take the backseat just to discover peaceful solutions to resolve the Maverick issue? You know, that Elysium project sounds really good right now. Third, the Professor, or rather Sigma. This whole conflict started when Axel stole the virus program, allegedly. And Sigma, out of nowhere, uses data to power up Red's Reploids and thus became Sigma's Mavericks. Some of these Mavericks either suffered through head diseases like Flame Hyaronard, or were fully aware of their alteration, like Tornado Tonian. When X encounters Tornado Tonian, he begs X to put an end to him, so only he knew about what the virus program program does, but everyone else seems to have suffered no side effects. Snipe Anteater seems to have seen data of X and Zero. He summarizes that the color blue is a pile of lies that infested the Earth, and the color red is the destroyer that was sealed away. This is once again referencing the confrontation of Zero and Copy X in the Zero series. What I'm guessing is that the virus program is infecting their minds to Sigma's memories. Him fighting Zero, him discovering who Zero actually is, and knowing of X's endeavors to build a peaceful world. Despite all the fighting X has done, you can't build a utopia on top of graves of rebels. It's not clear if Snipe Anteater shows signs of illness due to the virus program, but all the more reason to address how inconsistent the program actually is. Again, no mention within the game itself. Axel showed up, killed a guy, and left red alert. And once Axel discloses that nobody knows how to use DNA data, Zero came to the conclusion that there was a missing link, and that missing link was Sigma, who needed Axel to gather more DNA data, hence why he powered up all of Red's goons and prompted Red to start the duel just so Axel can copy more data. Oh my god, this whole mess happened so that Sigma could take advantage of Red's reploids just to get X and Zero. You know, I would praise this story if it had transparency about the virus program and how Red Alert operates. In fact, what would help X7's story is addressing what transpired before. The fight against the Dumper Army, the Great Repliforest War, the Erasure Incident, the Erasure Colony, and the Zero Nightmare. Yeah, time to fix this. Instead of Axel showing up and killing two reploids with no contacts to speak of, Red Alert should be showcased as vigilantes, interfering with Maverick Hunter business and creating an infamous legacy for themselves. Red Alert did cause far too much trouble after all. Due to their overzealous nature, Axel left Red Alert to join the Maverick Hunters, but was taken into custody by X and Zero. Wanting to correct his wrongdoings, Axel wants to become a Maverick Hunter, but X is against this. Suddenly, the Maverick Hunters receive a transmission from Red who demands Axel's return, but Axel refuses, prompting Red to initiate the duel between his reploids against the Maverick Hunters to prove that Red Alert are the true Maverick Hunters, especially when Red believes that the Maverick Hunters are unable to prevent Maverick outbreaks. Out with the old and in with the new, and that saying is proven true because, like Axel, Red Alert also consists of new types of reploids, the new generation reploids that were created with virus immunity after the disaster that was the Zero Nightmare. These reploids were created so they could help humanity rebuild after the events of the Zero Nightmare, and Axel just so happens to be the one of the prototypes of these new generation reploids. Due to being new generation reploids, Red believes that he and Red Alert has what it takes to be the new Maverick Hunters, labeling the current Maverick Hunters obsolete. This would be the beginning of the battle against new generation reploids, which ultimately led to the battle against these reploids with copy chips. Copy chips that are actually an immune system to prevent any new generation reploid from getting infected. The origin of these copy chips is the virus program that Axel stole. I would even go so far to say that the virus program originated from Zero's DNA that Gate had. Gate did use it to resurrect Sigma after all. So with X and Zero, Axel confronts Red after destroying all of his reploids, and Red discloses that Maverick Hunters can't protect the world because they cause more harm than good. Wanting to replace the Maverick Hunters with Red Alert, Red fights the Hunters, but the Hunters proved to be more of a match for him. This will be the beginning of the battle against the new generation reploids. With this rewrite in mind, X7 could have introduced new generation reploids in addition to prototypes like Axel that can copy other reploids. Axel in the original story didn't know where he found the copy ability, so that leaves a plot hole that needed to be filled. Also, X doesn't take the back seat and fights along Zero and Axel to end the conflict. Mega Man X7's story not only left a lot to be desired, but also just butchered X for no reason at all and wasn't even transparent about key components. Mega Man X7 needs a rewrite, one that introduces new generation reploids, Red Alert as a Maverick Hunter vigilante group that's seen as a hindrance, and Axel as a new generation reploid prototype. Most of these plot points were introduced in Mega Man X8. Also, notice how Sigma didn't appear in my version of the story. Red should have been the main antagonist because he deemed Maverick Hunters inferior to Red Alert, as Red Alert was more capable than the Maverick Hunters were. The presentation and lack of clarity are where X7 suffers the most, and because of that, the story leaves questions unanswered. Now for the most infamous part of Mega Man X7, the gameplay. If you recall how fast-paced and fluent the last entries were, Mega Man X7 slows down the pacing to a crawl. Movement speed, text boxes, loading screens, alien explaining how to use the menus. The overall pacing is sluggish and slow as soon as you begin the game. You start the game as Axel as he makes his escape from Red Alert. Learning how to lock on, hover, and moving around in the 3D space is the name of the game here. Learning how to transform is also part of the equation. Once Axel breaks out, the perspective switches to Zero in the Ravaged City. If you recall having Highway from Mega Man X1, then prepare to have your childhood ruined. Zero will be fighting Bee-Bladers, Baldivus, and Cune Bees as he returns to this not so nostalgic Highway highway. Just be careful not to get knocked off the highway. Yeah, knockback is nasty in this game. After nearly avoiding getting squished, Zero and Axel team up to fight the Mega Scorpio. Axel is recommended since Zero can't really do much besides deflecting shots with his Z-Saber. That's one aspect I like about Zero, being able to deflect shots with his saber, and he doesn't need a skill to do so. After that, all hell breaks loose. And to soften the blow, Axel and Zero climb the radio tower. Very reminiscent of the Bio Laboratory from X4 and the Laser Lab from X5. Except here, this spiral tower is the whole stage. The hunters have to reach the top to destroy the mechanoloid, the Yotokari. This Maverick launches missiles and is to impede progress. Other threats include batons that fly from the background, thus making them hard and annoying to attack. Antenna shields that are way too loud as they turn around. Fountains that produce electricity both offensively and defensively, guillotines that spin around and smack you in the face, broken pieces of the tower that are near easy to fall through due to precise platforming, and only for this stage, Yoku blocks. Good thing they phased it out in this game. In the middle of the tower, the hunters fight the Yotokari, which is equipped with missiles and razor blades. Once the hunters reach the top, they fight against my personal favorite Maverick in this entire game.
Welcome to my silly stage! Here goes nothing! Yeah!
Say what you want about the voice, but that just makes Tornado Tonian oh so sweeter. He's a dancing onion that creates tornadoes, splits his onion shell as he dances, and he even uses the shells to create barriers and even a shell blade. Zero isn't a good choice for this fight due to how close he has to be, but Axel can fight him just fine. I just wish Tornado Tonian was a bit faster because the overall pacing of this fight is a bit slow to my liking. Tornado Tonian is a mixed bag for me, but I still enjoy his company. I wish I did though. Deep Forest is a stage that I wish I could like. It's a forest with some ruins sprinkled in, which I find aesthetically pleasing. Rundown airships in the background, pieces of debris scattered everywhere, and all the greenery everywhere. Unfortunately, this stage has a handful of problems. First comes the ruinsmen that are way too durable for their own good. These Mavericks take way too long to copy, and this is mandatory to rescue red boys that are just chilling out on spikes. Then comes the collision when wall jumping up these ape stones, some of which vomit rocks. And don't forget about the Coon bees, which will swarm all over you. What I would like out of this stage is just being able to explore more of the forest, climbing trees, crossing up broken down airships. Hell, turn Mega Man X into Donkey Kong Country if need be. Then comes destroying these ape stones that Axel has to shoot because I sincerely doubt that Zero can reach them. Once all the ape stones are destroyed, it's time to fight Soldier Stone Kong, right after he runs over Axel. Seriously, this is on par with Flame Mammoth from Extreme 2. When Soldier Stone Kong isn't going ape insane, he throws his shield like a piss poor Captain America, he throws his boulder bomb that splits in two, swings his sword in close quarters, and to make this fight worse, there are fire pits in the middle of the arena. Soldier Stone Kong feels like a sluggish spark mandrill that throws giant rocks around. What a letdown. Battleship is a mixed bag for me. Though I like the idea of traversing a battleship that's armed with a variety of weapons and these mega tortoise, it feels like a leisurely jog on an armed battleship that has fire sprinkled everywhere. Even after destroying wall blasters that impede progress, it feels like I'm just going through the motions, fighting this fighter aircraft that spins around on the platform and doesn't take off in a type of projectiles or explosives, dragon blasters that shoot fireballs that can be deflected with Zero's Z-Saber, and the humanoid bridge that's filled to the brim with turrets and fireballs that can also be deflected. Zero doesn't need to move either, just stand your ground to fight those fireballs, taking notes from Diamond I see. Afterwards, a brief 2D section that honestly doesn't last long at all. Even the fight against Smash Warfly isn't that great, mostly because of how slow Axel and Zero's running speed is in comparison. Smash Warfly's launch attacks are the most deadly because they're too fast. He runs through the circle while spinning his weapon around, these missiles are way too persistent for their own good, and he squirts out water. Wow, this fight is not that great and made even worse when Axel and Zero have a hard time landing any hits, especially for Zero. This fight isn't frustrating, it's just nerve-wracking. This fight really shows how slow Axel and Zero really are. Not the worst, but not the best either. But at least it's cool seeing the gun vaults in 3D. Don't know why they have a barrier though. Now, I will admit that the land chaser stages and sequences in Mega Man X aren't a high point, but they could be thrilling in their own way. Being able to ride a hoverbike gets a nice change of pace from all the ground combat, but deep down I wish these were as good as playing a motorcycle level in your favorite arcade game. Unfortunately, the central circuit takes the fun out of riding a land chaser and subjugates it into disarming bombs. Very moderately. Combine this with the runner bombs throwing bombs and the ride chaser taking damage from running over Metars, then this stage has got a whole lot not exciting. I should also note that when driving at full speed, this land chaser becomes harder to control, slipping and sliding out over the place with not much control. This is not great, and the fight against Ryan Borski doesn't make this stage any more worthwhile. Ryan Borski embodies all of the characteristics of a roadhog by either grabbing Axel or Zero with his horns and slamming them near the electric fence, driving furiously in a circle while summoning wheels and somehow summoning a spinning electric beam. What kind of stuff was Capcom on when they were making this? And to add insult to injury, there are also runner bombs on the edge of the arena throwing bombs. This is how you don't make a land chaser stage. This is how you don't make a motorcycle boss. This is how you take something that works effectively in previous games and you completely downgrade it into something more mundane. Also, the bombs explodes, so does the land chaser. Take me back to the marine base. It's way more fun than this. If there's any stage that perfectly defines the pacing of this game, it's the tunnel base. Though I like the right armor that Axel and Zero get to ride, especially the spider one later on, what kills the pacing is the right armor constantly stopping anytime he uses weapons, whether it be the rifle or the bomb launchers. Since this whole stage is in 3D, it's almost possible to bypass all the enemies and just to run for the door, assuming the door doesn't require any enemies to be defeated. Then comes his open area where defeating enemies is required. I hate to compare this to other games that came out years after this, but if you want to see a better mecha sequence, look no further than the Cherubot from Kid Icarus Uprising, where this mecha suit can literally lay the smackdown on enemies. It moves and uses guns at the same time and can use melee attacks. The Mantis from Halo 4 has a Gatling gun, a grenade launcher, and a stomp attack. I'll even take the Gigas from Kingdom Hearts 3. What I'm saying is that the right armor should be able to move and attack simultaneously. Even Zone of the Enders, a PlayStation 2 game that released in 2001, has much better mech gameplay than X7 does. Even the right armor from previous games operated better. Vanishing Gunkaroo adds more insult to the pacing problem I addressed earlier. First, he enters the fight with this right armor that takes little to no effort to destroy, but then afterwards the real fight begins. Vanishing Gunkaroo is a boxer, so he moves and fights like one, moving side to side, uppercut punches, and his triangle kick. Get used to him saying that over and over and over again. I would enjoy this fight more, but again, Axel and Zero aren't really pacers in this game. This whole stage overall is underwhelming to me. I do like the idea of prioritizing the right armor, but the level design needs to support that. I'm not really one who has experience in mecha games, but I've played mecha sections in other games that came out later than this that felt decent to play. And again, the right armors from the earlier X games were way better than this. It's just one downgrade after another. So what's next on the list? Lava Factory is probably the most copacetic stage thus far. It's a 2D layout with some decent platforming challenge. Guardians prove to be a handful, but not enough that they're a hassle. Flyers, however, can be because they fly from the foreground, fire enough for range attacks. Guard fans and bombs are plentiful along the way, some of which pose a threat to Reploids in need of rescuing. Which I forgot to mention, in Mega Man X6, rescue Reploids die if they're infected by the Nightmare viruses, but in Mega Man X7, anything can kill rescue Reploids. Doesn't matter what it is, rescue Reploids are always in danger. Dragon Blasters also pose a minimal threat, so all in all the 2D section is alright. The only concern is the flyers that can just fly from either the foreground or the background. The 3D section is where there's more of a challenge, mainly because of the Dragon Blasters, Guardians, and Guard fans. I should also note that Knockback will be your worst enemy because one false move is enough to send either Hunter into the burning inferno. This is on par with how Mega Man and Mega Man 1 that after taking damage isn't immune afterwards, meaning that Knockback into spikes is enough for an instant kill. Even gliding close enough to the lava when reaching the side is also a great source of concern. After traversing the optical shaped platforms, the hunters encounter Flame Higher-Nard, or Flame Higher-Nards, because this Maverick, for some odd reason, has the ability to duplicate himself. In the beginning, these clones chase and throw fire, but the real fight is on top of the giant mechanoid gazelle, where Flame Higher-Nard summons two clones and play a game of Ring Around the Rosie, all while throwing fireballs and using physical attacks. This fight takes a while because not only are Flame Higher-Nard and its clones agile, but the gazelle mechanoid can also shoot missiles. But that's not all, because this fight in particular is the main reason why the mute button was invented. You all know what's coming up. Cover your ears.
Turn to the ground! Turn to the ground! Turn to the ground! Turn to the ground! Burn!
Not even an exaggeration. This fight is terrible. If it's not the annoying clones, the jitteriness of the gazelle mechanoid, or this Ring Around the Rosie nonsense, it's Flame Higher-Nard constantly losing his mind. Other than that, the stage itself does need some improvements, but overall not the worst. But not the best either. Air Forces is a stage I like conceptually. Platforming through airships all while battling Mavericks and trying to avoid falling off is daring as it is dangerous. Blue ships that follow a set path, red ships that transport the hunters to the next area, albeit some tilting that poses a nuisance when grabbing this heart tank here, this is the worst, and grabbing ships that sway back and forth. Reliable and concerning. One big negative I have with this area in particular is a collision. Trying to wall jump on these ships all while they jitter about doesn't fill me with confidence. After hopscotching across the airships, the hunters arrive on the flying fortress where they must destroy 2 big rays and a birdie. Well, that was easy. Inside the fortress are some runner bonds which are everywhere, base gunners which are nasty little snipers, and ape boys that act as gatekeepers. The most infamous aspect when inside the fortress is the camera. Not being able to see around corners is enough for any poor unfortunate soul to succumb to cheap tactics. After reaching the top of the fortress, wind crowing appears and mostly resorts to long range attacks and the occasional dive and combo attack. This double-sided attack is the nastiest part. Zero can double jump over this no problem, but for others like X or Axel, what is the solution here? I am left completely dumbfounded. Ymosi hangs out in the foreground, which can make landing shots hit or miss, and Zero just waiting for him to come down and avoiding any knockback in the process. You know, I do love me a good Armada base level. The introduction of Star Fox Assault, Chapter 16 of Kid Icarus Uprising, even airship levels can be good. I did find some enjoyment in the first half of Air Forces, but the second half just left me wishing this was actually good. Even when Chromium's fight left me wanting this to be good. Just give this the Rebel Force Air Fleet treatment and you have my attention. Or maybe some arm rail shooting like in Star Fox or Afterburner. Airship combat in Mega Man X, anyone? Oh god, oh god, the worst for last, Cyberfield. Where do I even begin? At first glance, you may think this is another cyber base level similar to cyberspace or even the planetarium, but take a few steps to witness the Mushiroid walk through these firewall-like gates here, and this basically sets up the whole stage. Axel needs the DNA of these Mushiroids in order to pass through these walls, but then comes the orange platforms that flip the hunters underneath the blue platforms, where they have to flip again on the opposite side just to progress. Trying to get the hard tank in a capsule is the worst part, really. Constantly getting blocked by walls and attacked by Cune bees and cyberstones doesn't make this any better. In fact, I would go so far to say that this whole level layout doesn't make anything any better. I can appreciate the idea of flipping from top side to down under, but the layout on the roadblocks like these? Pass. Especially when this concept was handled better in other games, which makes this whole ordeal just unbearable. There was even a scrap concept of this level revealed in the earlier trailers. I will greatly expand upon this stage, all while introducing designs that can help make this stage even more creative. Why not go all crazy stairs and just have some topsy-turvy antics, or maybe something surreal yet intriguing? Anything other than this. And honestly, I'll take Flame Hyanard over Snipe Anteater any day, because Snipe Anteater just makes a mess throughout this entire fight, landing these imp bombs with explosions that comes off as bigger hitboxes than the explosion. These turrets to home in on X's location here with precision aiming, and don't even get me started with the Snipe Anteaters just hanging out on the other side of the tube here. Why can't X go there? Or better yet, why not just have this entire fight take advantage of this whole cylinder? The biggest problem I'm seeing with Cyberfield is how it doesn't live up to its potential. Lack of creativity like cyberspace and planetarium, walls all over the place, and this fight right here is just pain and misery blend together. Just like Infinity Virginian, leave this one for last. This is the bottom of the barrel here, folks. How unfortunate. And the worst has yet to be told. Palace Road is one glorified highway where the hunters are being chased by one large mole boar while they battle any rendezvous or road crashers with no ride chaser to speak of. The one time using a ride chaser would be thrilling, and is just a pathetic attempt at a chase level. You know, when a game that came out 7 years prior to a then next-gen game on a next-gen console and accomplished the chasing gimmick much better, that's how embarrassing this actually looks. Combined with camera angles that don't help much with these large mines that you have to watch out for, Palace Road is a chase level gone wrong, especially when the hunters at the end have to fight the mole boar where he can either spin awkwardly, send on his own shell blades, shoots a giant laser, or drive back and forth with no indication. Taking notes from Blaze Hitnix, I see. This is one horrendous trek to the palace, isn't it? A pace-breaking stroll while avoiding any or all obstacles with barely any visibility is how you don't make a chase sequence that was accomplished 7 years earlier than this. At least the mole board looks cool in 3D. That's all this game has going for it, does it? Seeing classic X enemies in 3D. Yeah, I can admit that they look astonishing in 3D, but this whole production is one sloppy, unfulfilling experience thus far. Yeah, thus far. The palace is up next. And this is the moment that I honestly believe that nobody back in the day didn't have any second guesses in regards to what they made here. The beginning of Cruising Palace is also a slog. It's bad enough these batons get some cheap hits in due to them flying from the foreground, but these large boulders take their sweet time just rolling across. Don't mind X here, keep rolling. After the second boulder, the hunters encounter the leader of Red Alert, red, which is the appropriate color to describe how I feel about this fight. This fight can go straight to hell. This arena is ripe for some knockback action and awkward collision. Every attack stops anyone in their tracks, which kills their mid-air momentum. Red is immune during this wannabe Marine tornado attack. His clones are annoying. This arena is annoying. He counters with a side attack that's hard to predict. Him disappearing is just infuriating, and just when victory seems within reach, this fight is trash. Everything about it is trash. The pacing, the design, the constant teleporting. Fuck this fight. Oh, and you thought that defeating Red would just end the level, right?
No, we have more maps for you.
The area splits in two, so the hunters have a choice. Either A, suffer through a laser segment that's filled with Hellguarders with level design that relies heavily on air dashing, or B, brute force a bunch of proto-riders with ride armor.
The choices are yours and yours alone.
Well, technically there's a third option, but...
Someday, but not today.
Because on top of the palace lies even more Hellguarders. Mega tortoises that literally hide in the shell and guard fans ready to knock back anything that stands in their line of sight. As the hunters keep climbing, they soon fight even more Hellguarders with flamethrowers that stretch too far and batons that fly from the foreground and ape stones and ape stings that are completely immune to all attacks. This hurts to look at, oh my god. Never mind the bad enemy placement, I just want this done at this point. Oh, look, the refights.
Montage time!
Also, I just want to bring attention to this, but did no one actually think that these voices of the Mavericks were the most annoying, repetitive sounds known to man?
Holy moly, charge! Holy moly, charge! Holy moly, charge! Holy moly!
Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! Stop it! Burn! Burn! Burn to the ground!
To you.
Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! Burn! Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground!
Oop. And
Now you see why I prefer the refight setup from X1. X actively traverses through the fortress and battles the Mavericks along the way, not fighting the Mavericks in one room back to back. By how slow paced this game already is and how infamous the fights already are, this is by far the worst refight section in the X series. Oh boy, now for Sigma. Since he has a mighty gun to use, that means he uses a variety of ranged attacks. Walking while shooting, aiming his shots, shooting from the background, even firing his laser. I do like the idea of Sigma just being a gunman. Earlier we've seen this form take shape in X3, but now he's gone from close range attacks to long range, so I appreciate the change. I just wish the room where this fight took place was clear from debris and Sigma was a bit faster than my liking. This form gets an honorable mention from me. The final form can burn in the lake of fire. This arena with all these floating rods combined with the janky collision and camera angles is already a deal breaker for me. Plus, there's these energy blasts that X and Axel had to avoid, but Zero can just deflect them with these. This belly button beam that can cause some serious damage, this punch attack that just comes at the hunters with great force with barely any negation, and these other energy ball attacks where Sigma spins around like Mike Hagar from Final Fight. In all honesty, this is the worst final Sigma form. The overall area is dreadful to traverse through, especially when the hunters find themselves in a position where Sigma gets the upper hand. Utilizing weapons both offensively and defensively is key to surviving this hellscape. Truly a miserable and excruciating experience. I'd rather put up with Golem Maya's nonsense from Jack and Daxter. Speaking of nonsense, the weapons here are underwhelming, yet they can be utilized in certain situations. The Volt Tornado is the best weapon in this arsenal as it's tall enough to use defensively. The travel speed is exceptionally fast and the damage it does is phenomenal. The charge shot, however, is less impressive. X is surrounded by an electric barrier that doesn't deal damage but instead generates health when in contact with enemies. The Volt Tornado is a great weapon to use, but the charge variant is lackluster. Gaia Shield is a shield weapon that can block enemy attacks. The charge shot is a boulder that splits in two and then explodes. I hardly found any use for this weapon aside from blocking range attacks, and the charge shot, I mean, what even is this? When Soldier Stonecone used it, it was much more fierce compared to when X used it. This slow-paced boulder that splits in two might have some uses in 2D, but in 3D, good luck finding a sweet spot just to use this. Splash Laser is a water splash weapon that arcs downward after firing. It just goes limp when shooting and doesn't really have much distance. The charge shot, however, is how this weapon should be, a barrage of bubbles that deals decent damage. Personally, one of my favorite charge shot variants in this arsenal. The Splash Laser normally is less impressive than the water balloon from Mega Man 8, which is honestly quite pitiful. Movie Wheel is a wheel that travels up on walls at a moderate pace. The charge shot is shooting 3 wheels, 2 that bounce and 1 that rolls. In 2D, I can see the full effectiveness of this weapon, but 3D is rather hit or miss. I honestly prefer the spin wheel from Mega Man X2. Wing Cutter is probably on par with Gaia Shield in terms of usefulness. A boomerang-like weapon that hones in on enemies with not much power put into it. The charge shot is a multi-seeking shot that theoretically could home in on enemies, but you let me down, Wing Cutter. Boomerang Cutter is Sonic Slicer all the way. Circle Blaze is like the fire version of the Crash Bomb from Mega Man 2, a fire weapon that bursts in an explosion. The charge shot is a combustion of more explosions. Though this lacks power, this weapon can be good for defeating multiple enemies in one spot. Plus, it's decent for continuous damage as it burns. This one gets an honorable mention for me. Explosion is a slow, short-range explosion weapon that doesn't explode and doesn't do much damage. But good God almighty, does this thing consume a lot of ammo. The charge shot is the same attack, but now in multiple directions. Sniper Missile is similar to the homing torpedo from Mega Man X1. The charge shot is firing 3 missiles that awkwardly spread. Though the regular Sniper Missile can be reliable at times, I honestly don't charge this weapon as much. Between this and the homing torpedo, I think you know where this is going. Zero, as usual, gets techniques. Baku Engine is a ground smash attack that destroys any enemies in its radius. It consumes a chunk of energy, but is well suited when handling a group of enemies, especially in 3D. Hadan Genki is a wave attack that has short distance. It could be useful if you know where to use it. Raijin Show was plenty useful. The Volt Tornado was very useful when X and Axel used it, and that tradition continues with Zero. Soy Resusan is a lunge attack that deals good damage, but the windup takes a while, thus leaves Zero vulnerable. Goku Monkin is a counter stance move that counters physical attacks. Again, hardly used this, but it would be cool if Zero did have a counter move that did help him in dire situations, like Sora in Kingdom Hearts. So Yuen Boo is just the Wing Cutter again. Moving on. Hien Jin is a twirling missile attack. Honestly, I forgot about this. And Zankorian is Zero's moving wheel equivalent. Man, even Zero's techniques are lackluster. Honestly, Bakuin Jin and Raijin Show are the techniques Zero mostly used in my playthrough, but the vast majority is just deflecting shots with his Z-Saber. I hardly had any uses for his long-range attacks, which honestly is pretty sad. Weapons and techniques in general can be useful in their own, but in the case of X7, due to the sluggish speed and lack of fluidity, most of the techniques just come off as an afterthought. Plus, Zero can dish out pain with combo swings most of the time anyways, making most of the techniques not that reliable. In fact, I wish these weapons and techniques were more reliable so I can discover how to use them properly. Unfortunately, I found the weapons carrying most of the weight than the techniques. X's armor, the gliding armor, feels like more of the same. Leg parts allowing gliding in the air, body parts grant X the Giga Attack and more defense, which in order to use the Giga Attack, you have to press L1 and R1 at the same time, which can cause accidental inputs. The buster part allows X to charge weapons and deal some additional damage in the charge shot, and the head part draws in nearby health or ammo drops, whenever it feels like anyways. Presentation-wise, Mega Man X7 can be passable at times with how this game looks, but there are some aesthetics that don't really look right. Whether it's the great-looking lava, this photo-esque city and sky background, or this texture-based water, Mega Man X7 can look decent at times, and when it's not decent, it's either bland or just not good to look at. Speaking of not good to look at, lack of animations. Not only does this look jarring, but it also looks lifeless. I mean, characters don't emote, there's no mouth moving when they speak, no turning animation. It's like characters in this game are action figures brought to life. No soul emotion whatsoever. Collision is also a problem because in past X games, being able to move fluently has always been a key factor in basic gameplay. Now, sometimes characters can just jitter and struggle just by climbing on a wall, which not only looks dissatisfying, but doesn't really feel right. Just look how X wall jumps in X1, and compare that to X7. Running speed is at its all-time low. Their running gestures look stiff and unnatural. Zero's hair clips to his entire body every time he double jumps, but at least like how X and Axel aim near what's above or below them. Reminds me of Iconoclast. So aesthetically it's hit or miss, but functionally it's a mess. As for character switching, which I've glanced over thus far, you can play as Zero and Axel in the beginning, but after rescuing 64 Reploids, X becomes playable. But he's nowhere near as powerful as Zero and Axel are. Rescue Reploids offer chests that the hunters can use to enhance their abilities, but they can also find heart tanks scattered everywhere. Unfortunately, these heart tanks aren't split among the hunters, and I purposely let them attached so X can retrieve them for himself. Even after unlocking X, you still have to choose which hunter heads out to battle instead of just having all three at your disposal. Character switching is more refined as it was in Max 3, but this presents a new problem. Anytime that a hunter goes down, that also counts for the hunter on standby. If one hunter goes down,
That's the end of it.
normally I have this kind of problem in RPGs, but this coming from the X series?
Unbelievable.
Oh, and remember how in previous X games you would cycle between weapons with the L and R buttons? Well, in X7 that function is tied to the right analog stick, not the shoulder buttons. So if you want to use the right analog stick to move the camera and use the shoulder buttons to cycle through weapons,
That's too damn bad!
and if you want to talk about the biggest mess in this game, that would be the voice acting. I understand that Axel is meant to be the youngest of the group, but he comes up as too childish to my liking. This is going to sound crazy, but I get a little bit of Naruto impression. Here's what I mean.
Zero, you're my hero. Hey, I knew you'd understand. I always thought you and X were so cool. I want to fight. I want to be a Maverick Hunter.
Because I'm going to be greater than any of them. Me, Naruto, the next Hokage, a ninja legend. Then everyone will have to stop disrespecting me and look up to me. Believe it!
It's not the ideal voice I would imagine Axel having, but I'd say it's copacetic. Joe's voice is too deep, and I'm not saying that because of his voice in X4. I detect a bit of grumpiness and lack of enthusiasm in his voice. In fact, I sometimes get a sense of Leon Kennedy in his voice.
I'm going by myself. As for you, you can do as you please.
Monsters. Guess after this there'll be one less to worry about.
Just an older, gruffier version of Leon. X... Okay, so I honestly think that the voice itself is a step in the right direction, but the voice direction is bad. X is just a whiny retiree and has no faith in Axel to carry out any Maverick Hunter duties. In fact, the voice direction for X is at its worst in this game because of how he sounds in the dialogue.
We've made this mistake time and time again. Why must Reploids continue this accursed cycle of aggression?
How many times do I have to hear X say on several occasions when he fires a charge shot? X, my poor boy, I feel so bad for how you've been treated. Sailors is way deeper than Zero's, and Elliot comes off as a generic TV spokesperson who advertises 1-800 numbers.
This is our chance. Red Alert has caused us far too much trouble.
The rescue of a captured Reploid is progressing smoothly, thanks to those two.
Red's performance is actually pretty good, albeit with some questionable deliveries here and there.
What? What do you mean?
The Mavericks are a mixed bag for me. Trinitonian is a lovable goof.
Welcome to my silly stage. Here goes nothing, yeah!
Splash Warfight comes off as a scoundrel.
I've been waiting for you, traitor.
Flame Ironheart.
Burn to the ground! 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 Burn! Burn!
Don't even get me started. Ryborski is a cartoon bully character.
How dare you group us with those punks! You'll get it for this!
Sam Anteater sounds like Red doing an old man impression.
Now, I want you to fight like normal. I need to get good data on you, boy.
Wayne Crowman sounds like a jerk.
I can see it in your eyes. You would prefer to avoid a fight.
A sibling, pessimistic jerk. Vanishing Kangaroo has the same voice as Axel, which makes him sound like an even younger Axel.
I'm not the kid you used to know. But you're acting like a kid right now.
Soldier Stone Cold sounds like a prideful warrior with a deep, scruffy voice.
Now, all we can do is stay true to our beliefs, wherever they might lead us.
Almost sounds like he's about to roar. And Sigma sounds like a scruffy old biker.
Again and again, I will make X and Zero mine. Now come and get me. Give me a good fight, like you always do.
Man, I'm so bad at describing voices. I took a listen at the Japanese voices, and direction-wise, it's nice on the ears.
葉はいらぬ。信念の剣をかざし刃を持って語るがいい。どの道勝利の上にしか歴史は正当性を与えぬ。
ギャーオラの爆笑ステージへようこそです。まずは一発です。ピローンてめえが X か。現役引退したって聞いたぜ。
ヘッド？てめえそんな恥ずかしい名前で呼びやがって。総長と呼べ。
世界を覆う偽りの青、封じられる破壊されし赤。
できれば戦いたくない、そんなことを思っている顔だな。
お前か。お前が俺を苦しめているのか。分かったぞ。お前を八つ裂きにすれば苦しくなくなる。そうだろう。そうに違いない。
そうだ、さっき罪を償えって言ったよね、X。じゃあ僕をイレギュラーハンターにしてよ。ゼロとのコンビネーションもバッチリだし、なんといってもレッドアラートのことなら任せてよ。
何を言ってる。お前みたいなやつをハンターとして認められるわけないだろ。冗談をやめてくれ。
本気さ。それが僕の罪滅ぼしだよ。
お前が素直に戻れば問題解決する。どうやらそうもいかなくなってしまう。そうだな、奴らはまともじゃない。当然話し合いも通じないだろう。こいつが戻ったところでおとなしくなるとは思えない。それにこいつは戻る気がないだろう。
早速動き始めたようね。各地でイレギュラー発生。被害の出たエリアを調べてみるわ。
彼の能力は素晴らしいな。
あんたか。脅かすなよ。彼の能力ってアクセルのコピー能力のことか。まったくだ。原理は全くわからないが重宝してるぜ。奴のおかげで俺たちの仕事がはかどる。
しかしこのままでは宝の持ち腐れだな。
なんだと？それはどういう意味だ？
私に任せてみる気はないか？
Axel sounds like Luffy, Zero sounds like how he did in X1, X6, as does X, though assertive. Cinder sounds like a gentleman, Alien sounds on par with her usual voice from X6. Red is a bit too old to my liking, I actually prefer the sound of his English voice more. For the Maverick voices, Benedict Gungaroo sounds like a girl, Soldier Stonecone sounds like a typical badass old man samurai, Tornado Tonia sounds like a rejected clown trying to do a Buggy the Clown impression, Splash Fly sounds like a snarky wisecracker, Flame Hardener sounds too calm for his own good, even in battle he sounds tolerable. Brightboardsky reminds me of Hichikata from Gintama. Slime Anteater really sounds like an old man. Red Chromate sounds moody and collective, and Sigma retains his voice just like Zero and X did. The Japanese performances are much stronger than the English ones, but there are some English voices I prefer, like Tornado Tonian and Red. Also, each of the warning sirens sound alarming in their own way.
Warning! Warning!
Warning! Even though the story is nonsensical and the gameplay is rubbish, the soundtrack at least does this game justice. Most of these tracks are bangers to listen to and worth listening on their own. Some are fun to jam to, while others are upbeat. As always, have a listen for yourselves. If Mega Man X6 is considered miserable, then Mega Man X7 is an embarrassment. And I'm not saying that because this game was released on the same console as Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Ratchet & Clank. Everything from the production to the conception is just an embarrassment from top to bottom, and the fact that Capcom found this permissible back in the day also makes this worse. There is no excuse for such a sluggish, unfaithful addition to the X series. As a Mega Man X game, and it pains me to say this, but it fails. As a 2D, 3D hybrid platformer, there are much better options out there. So even though I found some positives in Mega Man X7, it's not enough for me to go back to this game like I do with the other ones. Despite my negative views of this title, can Mega Man X7 actually be fixed? Honestly, what Mega Man X7 needs is a complete overhaul. The story needs to be rewritten to how I rewrote it. The gameplay needs to be refined so the 3D aspects can work for the X series. And if voice acting is part of the equation, then have actual talent and none of this amateurish blasphemy. The best examples I can think of on how Mega Man X7 can be good is a 3D Mega Man X fan game and a Mega Man X like indie game. Mega Man X Training Missions is a 3D X game with actual refined 3D gameplay that acts more so like Ratchet & Clank. You can play as X or Zero in this 3D simulation. Protodroid Delta is a 3D platforming game with X mechanics with the fluidity and pacing that X7 wishes it had. Even the voice acting is top notch.
Looking good out there, Delta? Keep it up. We just need to run one more diagnostic on your systems.
Understood. However, Doctor, you said just one more diagnostic exactly 98 tests ago. While your optimism is encouraging, might I suggest a different phrase?
Might I suggest if you don't stop, are you ready to go?
Affirmative, Dr. Shelton. Continuing, just one more test.
Ooh, child.
Once again proving how amateurish the voice acting is in X7. And if you still want more examples on how 3D can work for X, then the two games that support that idea are Super Mario 3D World and Ratchet & Clank All for One. Both games have appropriate space 3D environments that are not only pleasant to go through, but actually supports more than one player, something that Mega Man X7 would have had before it was removed. The way these games play, the camera angles, the pacing, the smoothness, the collision, these games can be used as groundwork for what Mega Man X7 could be for today's standards. However, it seems that all that work is going towards Resident Evil these days, which is why I'm looking forward to the new studio's completion. I honestly believe that Mega Man X7 can be better than what was released back in 2003, but as it stands, this is not only an embarrassment, but it's also insulting. I feel bad for anyone that's getting to the X series now who have only heard horror stories about how infamous X7 is, only to become victimized by this game's nonsense once they play it. People who love Mega Man X deserve better than this. Even the X series deserves better than this. And we all point at the company responsible for this catastrophe and say in unison, "What the hell, Capcom?"